Okay, Mayor, it's 3 o'clock, so whenever you're ready.
All right, call the meeting to order, please, and roll call when you're ready, Liz.
Okay. 1 second, please. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Donnie Carter.
Here.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie.
Here.
And Mayor Robert Flanagan.
All here, Liz.
Okay.
Let's see. Go ahead, start off our action items, resolution 2020-24.
Okay. So I apologize for having a resolution on your work session agenda. Originally, we were looking to schedule closing dates later in the month of July for the remaining 4 properties on Center Street. Last year, you approved a resolution to acquire the first 4 properties on Center Street as part of the Center Street Redevelopment Project, which is the 8 properties between Oak and American. And we've been under contract on all 8 of the properties. That was in 2019, but 4 of the contracts held until August of this year. But due to vacation schedules and all of that, the closing dates that worked, and we had to close with the individual property owners within a short time frame so that their money would not be held in escrow for too long. And so the dates that work are tomorrow and Tuesday. So I was not able to delay this until the July council meeting, and probably should have done it in retrospect at the June council meeting. So I apologize for that. But this resolution would approve the purchase of the 4 remaining properties, which is 232, 246, 248.5, and 250 Center Street, from the respective property owners in the total amount of $651,000. And this will be funded by the Department of Housing and Community Development, their strategic demolition funding, as well as the Allegany County Department of the Allegany County Community Enhancement Program in their Economic Development Department. This project's been ongoing for many years, and what we'll be looking to do, and talk a little bit later when Laura gives her grant update, is close on the properties this summer and work on getting a demolition invitation to bid out shortly, and probably have bid awards for you to consider at your August meeting, or I'm sorry, demolition bids for you to consider at your August meeting. So we can get those properties down and have a lot that's ready for redevelopment. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion and a second on resolution 20-24. I did not receive any public comment regarding this resolution today. And then Mayor, I'd ask for you to allow me to do a roll call vote for the record.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-24.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor by roll call vote?
Commissioner Donnie Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Nina Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Grove,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Okay, so lots of staff reports today. Some of this stuff has been delayed because of COVID, and the first couple months of dealing with the pandemic, I think we were really focusing on just getting what was necessary done. But now we're trying to keep the services that the residents expect going and keep projects where the funding available is going or continuing to go. So lots of staff reports today for you in terms of just regular business. So first we have Chris joining us for 2 items. Paving contract is the first.
Thank you, Liz. What we want to do is do a resolution for the upcoming council meeting so that we can award the paving bid to the lowest responsible bidder. The bids will be opened on Thursday, June 30th at 11 a.m. at City Place. And in order to turn this around and get the paving contractor working here during the summer, we do not want to wait until the August council meeting to get approval to do this. Now, we've done this many times in the past. We have advertised on in the newspaper, on the website, and on the Maryland Marketplace. So we're doing everything properly. And Elizabeth and the Commissioner of Public Works, Adam Ritchie, and the other commissioners will have an update on the bid opening. And so that will happen after we open the bids, and hopefully we can do this resolution here next week so that we are allowed to do that. So that's what I'm going to ask for at the next council meeting.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on that particular item?
All good.
Good. The next item is at the council meeting, we would like to get started on the design of the next CSO project. Everything is exactly like we wanted it in the design proposal from Specs Engineering. Elizabeth and I are both satisfied with the proposal. The proposal is for $42,020 plus incidentals above that at $3,180. So I'm going to ask to approve this contract so we can get it signed and get the design started. Laura Michaels may have something to say about the budget, which is very favorable because we are fully funded for this one. And we're really successful with the Maryland Department of Environment receiving funds for these projects. So are there any questions about that, or would Laura like to say anything in response to the budget?
We're good to go on the budget, Chris. It was the next project that we just got our ranking, favorable ranking. This one, we've received the letter. We have the funding. We're good to go.
Good, thank you. Okay, so
Just
we need to get this thing signed so we can construct it next year.
And just as a recap, the way the city funds the design for the projects is we fund that out of the CSO surcharge revenue that the city collects from all of our customers. And that design is ready to go when we are awarded funding from MDE that's generally been very favorable. And then the remainder of that surcharge collected goes towards the grant requirement match. So we've in many of the recent years, we've received at least 87.5% grant, and the city has a 12.5% match. And by paying for design and including that as part of the match, we haven't had to take out loans to do these really important and really big CSO, combined sewer overflow projects throughout the city that results in a lot of new infrastructure. So the cycle that Chris has come up with of just the continuous wheel of different projects in different stages has worked out really well for us. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I think that's all I have unless there's additional questions.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have LJ Bennett, Community Development Director, to go over a few items.
Good afternoon, everyone. The first one is the MDP annual report. This is something we submit every year, and we outline the number of new residential permits that have been issued. And so for the calendar year of 2019, we issued 6 different new residential permits, which is a significant increase over previous years. Then there are a series of questions that the Maryland Department of Planning asks us, and one of them is specifically, is there anything we can assist you with? And so we have our updated comprehensive plan, including a housing element to be added, due in 2021. So I did request assistance for that project. This would have been presented to the Planning Commission last night, but due to serious technical difficulties, we were not able to conduct that meeting. And I'm currently in the process of rescheduling it for most likely next Wednesday. And hope to gain the Planning Commission's approval for that report, and then hope to gain your approval for that report, and we'll submit it to the Maryland Department of Planning.
Well, Jay, I'm a little bit in the dark about what you mean about the housing project. I can't remember the words you used.
It's the main point of the report is the question, how many permits for new residential structures have you issued in a calendar year? And so in the 2019 calendar year, we issued 6 residential construction permits, and that means new houses being built in the city limits. And that was a significant increase over years past. Over years past, there may have been 1 or 2 and sometimes 0. So 2019 was a good year for new residential permits.
Okay.
Nina, were you inquiring into the housing element as part of the comprehensive plan?
I thought maybe the assistance that LJ was requesting had to do with that.
Yes.
It definitely does. A new House rule came into effect this year that all comprehensive plans must include a housing element. So the Maryland Department of Planning has worked really hard to put together resources to help municipalities who don't yet have that to create one. So they've got a webpage dedicated to it, and services that can help us along in that process.
I see. Okay.
And that'll specifically look at things related to, do we have enough senior housing? Do we have enough single family housing? Is there adequate income-based housing, and just handicap accessible housing, things like that, that I know LJ and I had a feeling that this was coming in state law, but something that we wanted to do anyway, because it would further support projects like what is going to be happening at Center Street, is just having more data to back up what your community needs.
I see. So that will then include a data gathering
Yes.
aspect? Okay.
Next, we have a board appointment for the Historic District Commission. Commissioner Robert Rephan's term has expired, and he has indicated that he is willing to serve on the commission for a new 3-year term. Staff recommends that Mr. Rephan be reappointed and feels that Mr. Rephan brings a strong background in historic preservation and expertise to the commission. And it's also staff's opinion that his volunteerism certainly benefits our community. Ultimately, the mayor and council have the authority to appoint individuals of their choice to the board. If you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Rob's a good choice.
I agree.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
good then. Okay. Thank you, LJ.
My pleasure. I do have one more item for you this afternoon, and that is our contracted inspector for building permits, Mr. Cliff Bennett of Megco Inspections. has announced that as of August 1st, 2020, the cost for residential 100 and 200 amp electric service inspections will be $90. That is an increase from $75. Additionally, the cost for a 400 amp electric service will be $125, and a generator transfer switch will be $25. So you'll see that in our fee schedule that creates a difference in the inspection cost for 100 and 200 amp inspections. 400 amp inspections will be noted as starting at $125 per service. And the transfer switch which was previously an addition of 33% of the cost of the service, will change to a flat rate of $25 in addition to service. Cliff hasn't raised prices in over 5 years. And this is just an attempt to catch up with the cost of doing business.
All right, everybody, okay.
Thanks, LJ.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next, earlier this year, we discussed the enterprise fleet management, and that's was discussed at length at a couple work sessions. In addition, each commissioner had the opportunity to meet with the enterprise representatives in their department to get an overview of how the program works and talk about specific vehicle needs. Based on the information provided by Enterprise, well, first, they do have a government contract pricing. So we would be entering into the same price agreement that communities like large communities like Rockville here in Maryland, to small communities like Williamsport is the other closer, more comparably sized community would have. But the hope is that we have newer vehicles, which is a safer and more efficient fleet, and that if we continued a long-term relationship with Enterprise, we would be able to refresh that fleet on a 5-year basis and continue to build equity in our fleet by having things that still have value and not destined to the scrapyard when we're done. Newer vehicles are safer, as I mentioned, but they're also a lot more efficient, easier on fuel. And the important thing for the city is it really reduces maintenance costs on those vehicles, which is where we spend a good bit of money now. After COVID happened, there was consensus to delay a decision on the fleet management contract due to concerns of what revenue for 2021 would look like. And at this time, I think with the economy opening up to the extent that it has, we never saw a huge hit to our personal income taxes that the city collects. And those projections are looking to be about where we projected them to be. And although there is a decrease anticipated for 2021 fiscal year in highway user revenue, it's not expected to be significant. And based on the number of vehicles we see on the road now compared to a few months ago, I'm pretty comfortable assuming that, our highway user revenue will be somewhere in the ballpark of where it was budgeted for, if not more revenue. So that is part of the reason why I feel comfortable bringing this to your attention now instead of later in the year. A couple other things, when buying fleet vehicles, there's production windows. and we've missed some of the production windows. And in addition, one of the vehicles that we have spec'd out is a Ford, which I guess it's my understanding that because Ford was shut down to make ventilators for a period of time, and that it has a 42-week lead time. So at this point, it might not even be delivered in the, I'm sorry, I can't open that. I didn't check that before. Let me, a minute and I can pull that up here in my email. Anyway, Ford, there's a really big delay on the Ford vehicles. And then the other factor that's playing into this and why I bring it to you today is we have some vehicles that are on their last legs and we're slated for replacement. And I'm afraid that if we continue to delay a decision on the enterprise fleet agreement, we're going to be significantly short vehicles. And that's important to getting city work done on a regular basis. But right now, it's even more of an issue in terms of social distancing and trying to minimize the number of city employees that are in a vehicle. And we really don't want to be in the situation where 3 people need to be riding in a pickup truck in the city because we've got a bunch of broke down vehicles. So here's the timing. You can see here that the Ford 350 that's spec'd out for the street department isn't it if we were to enter into a contract at the July, if by the end of the July, it isn't expected to be delivered until May or June of next year. The 3 pickups, 2 of which are for the water or street department and 1 of which is for the water department, they have a shorter lead time and would be here this fall. We missed the summer police vehicle cutoff for their production. They do these production windows. So those wouldn't be delivered until late next winter, early spring. And then there is one, that's for the police. And then there is also the Chevy Bolt electric vehicle police car that will be partially funded through a grant that Laura Michael was able to obtain. And that should be delivered this fall. So what's important to note in sharing this timing with you is that we don't pay, the city doesn't pay for the vehicles until we take possession of them. So it significantly reduces the cost of what that first year lease would look like in this year. Now, Commissioner Ritchie has mentioned, and it's just because it's cost less this year, it's going to, that's because we have it for a less period of time. It's a continual commitment on an annual basis. So that's an overview of what it would look like per year. For fiscal year 1 would be $32,000.
Elizabeth, is that 1-ton pickup, the Ford, is that the one that it's replacing? Is that one of the ones that's just, is it going to make it for as long as we're going to need it? Or is there another possibility besides a Ford that we could get in, that that is being offered?
So the ones in the street department that are dying are 2 vehicles that the city bought used from another public agency 5 or 6 years ago. And they are both 3/4 ton or 1 ton utility body trucks. So those Dodges would replace that. For the dump bed one, you couldn't get a Dodge gasoline dump bed in a regular cab or something weird like that, which is why we ended up venturing away from Ford for that one vehicle where they wanted
Liz.
the dump bed. Yes.
Yeah, I remember that meeting. We were trying to spec it out in the Dodge, I think, and they couldn't do it. I think that was the issue. That's why we had to go with the Ford,
Uh-huh.
I believe.
Yeah, I sort of remember there were some strange, certain things were yoked together, and if,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think too, probably our timing right now, if we'd have already had this going before COVID, that might not have been such an issue either, you know. But so many, with Ford and Chevy shut down for so long,
Mhm.
I'm sure everybody's just put, in a major catch-up mode. I've talked to a couple of friends that they're in the car business, and they'd love to have new product on the lot, and they don't have it. So,
Well, as long as when we have can limp along until then, I mean, from the beginning, so when this was first presented, it just seemed like, especially long-term, it just seemed like a really good way to go.
anyone else?
I do have Michael Cohen reviewing the contract documents. So they'll be reviewed and approved by him before your council meeting next week.
Okay.
And, there's the option to only do it for 1 year and, continue to just pay the annual costs on the vehicles until they're paid off in the 5-year period and take ownership. Or there's the option to, replace everything in the first 5 years and then, continue to pay them off and not continue with enterprise, on that continual replacement. But of course, in those meetings, we've had the discussions of the benefits of that and disposing of vehicles while they still have value and the ability to build equity and reduce costs long term. So.
All right, I'm good. Everybody good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Sounds good.
All
Okay,
right,
Liz.
that'll be a resolution as well next week. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Okay. 2 more change orders with 37 Broadway. I hope we're getting to the point where these little things stop coming up as we go to the progress meetings each week. But and I'm talking to you, Chief Costello.
Would it cause a trouble, Nick?
The first one is a completely reasonable request, but the architect had originally spec'd out carpet in the dispatchers area within the police station. And just due to the traffic of all of the police officers in and out of there to communicate with the dispatcher on a regular basis, it was suggested that the carpeting be upgraded to a luxury vinyl tile. That does involve more labor. So there's a material upcharge within the labor upcharge as well. Neither of these have been approved by the architect yet, but I believe the numbers that I'm showing you, I believe that we're on track with these change orders as is to be approved. He just hasn't completed that paperwork yet. Any questions on that one? And then the other one is the earthwork contractor, when they came to dig the footers. And then we're looking at the rest of the project area. There is an existing stormwater inlet that is not going to work with the new parking lot design. So we were given two different options to replace it with a plastic pipe inlet, which is originally what we were leaning toward. But then when we got this potential change order, it was only $500 more for a concrete inlet, which is obviously more durable. It's going to be in the landscaped area, but staff recommendation would be to proceed with the new stormwater inlet and the concrete option, just in terms of long-term durability.
Okay.
Okay. No questions on that. We'll have a resolution on change orders. Okay, so now we have a few staff reports, and Laura Michael, our grants manager, has been busy, to say the least, and there's been a few setbacks in terms of some of the grant projects related to COVID-19 response. So I wanted Laura to give you an update on those, as well as briefly on some of the other projects that continue to move forward.
Thank you. I won't go through all of our projects today. Some of the ones that have been of interest lately. First of all, the Center Street redevelopment, because we've already talked about that one in the meeting. The last 4 properties on Center Street will be acquired in the next week. We'll also have an invitation for bids that will be advertised shortly thereafter, so that we can demolish those 8 properties and get to working with prospective developers to market the property. We also have a housing market analysis that was funded through another grant that will be complete this month, and that'll help us with getting ready to market the property and understanding what kind of housing would be most appropriate to put there in the mixed use development. So that'll be ready. We should have the report during July, hopefully. Also, you know that some of the money from the Au Petit redevelopment project was redirected to the Center Street project. So the grants are no longer available for that, although Administrator Stahlman will talk about a survey that was done for that next, and some other ideas that we might be looking at with that. Another idea that's related to the Au Petit project was the Hillside Tram project. That's one that has a lot of public interest. It's been a really popular project. Unfortunately, we've applied for 2 different grants with the Appalachian Regional Commission and then also with the Maryland Heritage Area Authority. It was a very favorable project. The grants were looking really good, but we've had to since turn down any money or rescind our applications for those, not only because of issues with COVID-19, but also in working in the design with the engineering firm. It went from about a $400,000 project to about a $1.5 million project. So at this time, that just has to be put on hold, but it's something that we would like to revisit in the future, just because of the nature of it, the public interest, and the fact that it would be a really good thing to provide ADA access and a means of transportation to get people from the trail and from the deeper area up to our business district. So it's something we'd like to get back to at some point. Also, at the Board of Public Works meeting on July 1st, all state highway projects were put on an indefinite hold. So that puts an indefinite hold on the design of our Braddock Road Bike and Ped Lanes project, unfortunately. All 8 districts are put on hold, their projects in Maryland. The one benefit, even though this particular project is on hold, that benefits our Gateway Roundabout project, because our design firm, Brutus and Associates, on that project most of their work was on state highway projects. And since most of those are now on hold, they can focus on our project and we can get our gateway roundabout designed quickly and really keep that big project on track. So as far as the gateway roundabout project is concerned, our preliminary design, or our PI, it'll be complete in the month of August this year. And they'll present that to MDOT-SHA and to us sometime in August. And we'd like to have the same design firm, Brutus, continue on to do the 30 to 90% design, which is the point where we'd be able to advertise it for the bidding for construction. And we'd hope to advertise that in fall 2021. It would go to construction in early 2022. And then hopefully we'd be able to partially open that for the fall 2022 FSU semester. We also have several parks and recs projects in play. The Hoffman Park Natural Playground and the trail is nearly complete. The Mount Pleasant Playground project is making a lot of progress. One of the main things that's remaining for that is just waiting until the fall to order the playground equipment because of the price matching deal that you can get double for your money toward the end of the season. And then we also have 2 new applications that are looking very favorable in for this next year, which are to resurface and restripe the Armory Court, and then to improve the Hoffman Concessions building as far as with the bathrooms. And then also, we haven't had a big impact to our CSO projects. They're moving along as usual. Fortunately, with COVID-19, they're an outdoor type of project, so they weren't hugely impacted. We have more than ever going in mix right now. We've got 4 different CSO projects running or in the hopper right now. So Phase IX-A, the Charles Street Corridor project, it's under construction and it's right about the 50% completion point right now. Phase IX-B in the same neighborhood in the Sawyer Street Corridor. The approval package for that will be mailed to MDE tomorrow. And the good news on that one is that our low bid came in so significantly lower than the engineer's estimate that we were able to actually take some of the work that we weren't able to cover in 9A, and we can add that on and use up some more of the grant money that we had to do another street, an extra street to separate the sewer and stormwater in that section. So we anticipate that one to begin construction, I'd say early August. Also the Phase IX-C Beall Street Corridor, as Chris mentioned, we got confirmation of the funding for that. The design will be submitted to MDE December this year, and hopefully that'll go to construction in spring next year.
Good.
And then we have a new one, Phase X-A, which is on the east side of Frostburg, the Georges Creek Headwaters project, that just received a really favorable rating on the MDE priority projects list. So that one's looking good for next year too. So unless anyone has any questions, that's what I had.
There you go. Laura, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Good work.
Thank you.
Yes.
Not only is she keeping track on all these projects, but they all have the mundane reporting requirements on a regular basis as well. So really appreciate her work on that. She did touch on the Au Petit building, something that I've discussed a little bit with county staff, and they seem to think it might fly, is when we purchased the Au Petit building in 2017, we received $160,000 of the Allegany County Community Enhancement grant program. But the agreement that we signed with them indicated that we would pay them back 50% or $80,000.
I don't remember that.
By unfortunately, their financial statements do, as do the cities. So that's been an obligation of the cities for the past 3 years. It's on a special community development account, so separate from the general fund. But that fund has basically not been used because of that obligation or liability on that. because of COVID, well, let me backtrack. So I've talked to some county staff, and they have indicated that they think the commissioners would be inclined to consider forgiving that $80,000 with a formal request from the mayor and city council. Because what I'd like to do is take those funds that are available and use those towards the demolition of the properties on Center Street. As I mentioned a month or two ago, it was really the expectation that we would have a developer under agreement at this time, and that some of the contracts could be assigned directly to the developer, and that the developer could take care of demolition. But those conversations with developers abruptly halted when the pandemic shut the economy down. So I know, I think the county commissioners are very supportive of the Center Street project, and would like to help the city, further that project along. And getting rid of 8 vacant buildings is surely, I think, in everyone's best interest. So if you're okay with that, I'll prepare a letter for the mayor to sign requesting that forgiveness.
All good. Let's do that.
Yep, good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so next, last month, we talked about the Au Petit building and the future of it, and our limited success in attracting a viable developer. So you authorized me to put out a survey, which we did, and we received 308 responses. And I'm sorry, 304 responses. And it was a 2-track survey, and depending on whether you answered yes or no here, would you like to see the Au Petit building rehabbed and reused? 86.5% said yes, and 13.5% said no. But then of the folks that said yes, the large majority of them, it was a pretty standard bell curve, really, in terms of what they thought the likelihood of the building being successfully redeveloped would be. And 1 was least likely and 5 was most likely. And then there's 173 free responses in that category, as well as a lot of free responses in terms of what type of uses could go in that building. And then for the people that said no, the large majority there felt like they did not want to see the building rehabilitated because it was not likely that a developer could rehabilitate it. And then there were 29 free responses there, and all of those responses are individually provided on the 28 pages. I don't know how much time you spent reviewing them in advance of this meeting, but it really reflects a wide array of just off-the-cuff reactions of what people think about that building and the future of that building. And there wasn't a lot of background information provided. I wanted to be able to kind of get that gut instinct of residents and make it a quick survey to get as many responses as possible. Sorry, too many things in my head. I think the next step typically would be to have some sort of public meeting or charrette type event where, you know, people could come out and discuss, and we could share more information about what we know. But that's really difficult to do, you know, with social distancing and just safety. And I don't think I can't think of a good way to structure that in a virtual environment.
Right.
One of the things that I did mention last month, I guess there's just like a few things that are on my mind. One is, you know, looking back on the request for a proposal that the city put out, it was a pretty rigorous standard that, you know, we were looking for. It required a bid bond. It required commitments to timelines. It required using MHIC contractors for grant work. It required a lot of insurances. And, you know, Laura courted a lot of people that were interested that just, for whatever reason, couldn't meet one of or multiple of those requirements. So like I said last month or the month before, you know, maybe getting rid of those requirements and just selling it like a normal city building, or you know, just selling it like another property that the city would dispose of would give us some opportunity. And so that, I don't know, that's something that's on my mind. And then also, it's no secret that the building is not in the best of shape. But, you know, Laura and I have walked through it multiple times. Laura probably more times than she's wanted to. She thinks there's ghosts in there, so maybe that's attractive to someone. But you know, we've walked through it with our grant managers that are in buildings all over the state, and I, you know, said to them, like, how bad is this? Like, tell us. And they were like, oh, this is in good condition compared to some of the buildings we've seen and invested and seen successful redevelopment projects on.
Right.
And, you know, we had Secretary Holt from Department of Housing and Community Development in the Cartway, which is just a dark, dingy, enclosed alley. And like, he was really excited about it. So those are the positives I see. But like many of the comments that were provided, our costs of construction here in Allegany County are pretty similar to where they are across the state. And our real estate market is much softer. The rents are much less than what can be commanded in Rockville or Gaithersburg or even downtown Frederick, for that matter, which, you know, very well may make it an upside down proposition, and put the city in a difficult choice of, we can't sit on this building forever. It's costing us money each year for insurance, and, you know, keeping the building in the not so great shape it is still a maintenance effort. So, you know, something's got to happen. I don't think continuing with the RFP that we have out there with $150,000 of grant money no longer is a viable option. So at this point, I guess I'd like some feedback and direction in terms of where you'd like me to, what you'd like me to do.
Anyone?
I know. Yeah, I think that if, you know, you take all those parameters off there, you know, and we just sell it to somebody, I hate to do that. And then they let it sit empty, you know. I mean, that's my thinking as far as going that route.
Well, maybe that should be the bottom line restriction, that they don't do that.
Right. There's some minimal restriction or control But I think that the point with the grant money coming off of it and the stiffness of some of those requirements probably was a discouragement. Some folks that maybe otherwise would have jumped in, and maybe now, it doesn't. And once it doesn't seem to make sense that you look a gift horse of $150,000 away, but then also knowing that there's a lot more hoops you're going to have to jump through. And I think as long as we keep a handle on what's going on with it, with the potential developer, and just, I still have a good feeling because I think I talked to a lot of folks that I know that respect the history of it. And if the facade could be rehab, but still fit what people remember the building looking like, I think that would be real positive. And then looking at the Center Street project, a developer could show up and say, I can't do Center Street, but well, do you have anything else that I could work on? So maybe one thing will help to sell the other thing, if you will.
Do we have some, well, I guess it would just have the same restrictions that any other development project would have. That's basically what you're saying, Elizabeth?
I mean, as the seller, Michael Cohen, our attorney, could write in any covenants
Right.
that you wanted to in the transfer, or any standards that you wanted to see.
So it could be negotiated basically with a prospective developer.
There's no money to fix the facade right now, right?
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
I mean, I'm not, I hate to say it, but I'm not, I'm kind of for the demolition. So
The other issue with demolition is we don't have the cash budgeted or sitting around for demolition.
I mean, to fix the facade, I don't know what it would cost, but I would think demolition might be less.
A couple years ago, we did get an estimate from a contractor to not like completely rehab the facade, but fix the bulge in the bricks. That's not a structural issue. It's a veneer, the building's a frame structure. And so those bricks are a veneer. And so just that bulging area would need to be taken down and relaid. The good news there was the paint on the building is not lead paint. We had that tested, so that keeps costs down. And the contractor that we did talk to is a union, they're part of the union, union employees. And so their cost estimate a couple of years ago was $75,000, around that.
Right. I know, the tram or whatever is on the back burner now, but that could be a really nice area, to stage people and to have some kind of little, welcome center, welcome to Frostburg, you could do different things there, that's for sure.
Of course, that could also be done. I mean, if keeping it as a historical building, that would be a kind of a pretty cool thing to come up from the train. And, even if you enter from the back, being able to walk through the cartway, that would be kind of cool. But if that would really depend on what the developer wanted to do.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, there could be an incentive for a developer. You're just having all these people come up from the train or from the trail,
That was
delivered to your door.
what the person wanted to do, to have them come up through the back and come through the cartway to Main Street.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Just don't know with COVID and with what's going on with that, if anybody's going to be willing to take that risk now, and that's, I think we're going to end up sitting on it for who knows how long.
You'd have to have somebody who has the long view, because eventually we're going to be dealing with COVID one way or another, either through a vaccine or through a treatment. And they can get going on the rehab in the meantime and have it ready to go for that eventuality.
Yeah, I just don't know if that person's out there. you know.
Right, yeah, that's the thing.
Anyone else? Kevin, Donnie?
I don't know. It's a problem for sure. We'll just keep looking.
Well, give it
Would
one
we
more
be able
round.
to-
See what we got.
Would we be able to recontact the people who had been interested, but who didn't want to jump through the hoops and for whom the $150,000 just wasn't enough? And see, well, and ask, are you interested now? Can we
Yeah,
negotiate something?
Yeah, and I mean, for that matter, we can reach out directly to them and, you do some of the no-cost networking advertisement as well. We had listed it in a preservation magazine, which is national, for 6 months or 9 months. I can't recall, Laura, but I mean, she would get calls on that from that source, but it'd be like an architect. I'd really love to be part of this, or, it was like a piece of the puzzle, but it never was enough to come together. Early on, she got some calls from some pretty reputable, larger companies, and for whatever reason, the interest fizzled out. So it's just, Frostburg's a tough market. And I think the comments in the survey really indicate people's optimism to pessimism on the economy of Frostburg. It really runs the gamut. One comment too, I'd just like to make on the in the survey, there was a lot of comments about green space and parklets, and that certainly isn't lost on me, the need for that on Main Street. There are several vacant lots right now on Main Street in the vicinity that I've pursued at one point or another in terms of, looking to potentially acquire to construct a parklet. Nothing has been to the point that I could come to you to say, let's look at making an offer. It's just parties aren't willing yet for one reason or another, but that isn't lost on me. And continue to look for those type of opportunities.
Thank you, Liz. We appreciate it.
We need some civic-minded owners of these lots.
So can you summarize what you want me to do?
Well, listen, I was going to say, for the present time right now, again, with COVID having such an effect on everything economic, let's face it. I mean, there's no two ways about it. This is probably, this is recession times 10 as far as I'm concerned, as to what went on 12 years ago. So I think we're all in a very, very similar situation. I mean, obviously we don't have the cash to demolish the building at this point. I'd hate to say it's going to sit another winter because we're obviously, like I said, we do know there's some issues that we're going to have to address. I don't know. I hate to say there's no quick fix, but at the same time, I'd like to say, if nothing else, at least take one more shot at maybe a little more, another advertising round, explaining that this would be a deal with us between us and a developer, and there's really no third parties involved. And then Michael, I know he could write something that would add some protections for us to a potential buyer or developer, but it wouldn't require all the hoops that is what grant funding would have required, and hang it out there and on the flagpole for 30 or 60 days and see if we get anything.
Yeah, maybe put something on there that, they kind of have to start some kind of project within 5 years of purchase, or, you know what I mean? Or
Even a year or two, just start
Yeah.
showing that there's been improvements made, that the building is being taken care of. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, the additions on the back of the building are going to need to come down immediately, because that's a source of moisture for the rest of the
Sure.
historic structure.
Go with that. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
For now.
Okay. There you go, Liz. You got it for now.
All right. We'll get working on it. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, one more thing.
right.
So on your June 30 meeting, you had considered a new RETSA agreement for Prichard Farms. Brandon Reece of Evergreen Associates has an additional patio home concept in the design phase, but he's not eligible to apply for the RETSA until, that is subdivided. And so he has requested that we extend the charter provisions for a RETSA agreement for a period of time so that he can get his process of subdivision done and then apply for the RETSA. Okay. So what's different since you last did a charter amendment, 2018, state law changed and now a public hearing is required to be advertised 21 days in advance of that public meeting. So in the past, you could, a charter amendment, you could vote on it at a council meeting, just like a resolution, but it didn't go in effect for 50 days unless someone petitioned it to referendum within 40 days. All of that stays the same, but now there's just this public hearing requirement. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that Brandon would like to get moving forward on this as quickly as possible. He does seem to have a lot of interest in new homes. So that advertisement will be in the paper and website, social media, 21 days prior to council meeting, which works out to be the very end of July. And then that will be on your August council meeting agenda. Unless I hear otherwise, but that's that's what I'm working towards at this point.
Okay.
And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about logistics of council meeting next week. I do believe last month you decided to go back to the regular time of 7 p.m. for council meetings. And obviously continue to try and have the meetings outside, weather permitting. If the weather next Thursday is anything like the weather today, I think 7 p.m. might feel a little better.
Right.
So 7 p.m. at Hoffman Park, weather permitting, will work
Right.
for everyone.
Yep.
Just bring plenty of fans.
I'll get you those like little squirt spray fans at the dollar store.
Yeah.
We'll have that will be open to the public. Chairs will be 6 feet apart, and the meeting will be live streamed to the best of our ability as we're working towards some better AV solutions here. LJ, there will be a couple proclamations on the agenda, a delayed Arbor Day one and a delayed Census Day one. We missed both of those in April, but Hoffman's a very appropriate place to talk about the importance of trees to our community, and the census canvassing efforts are just beginning. So again, it's still a relevant message. Okay. And in an effort to better accommodate public participation in city meetings, council meetings, and other board meetings, as I kind of alluded to, we're working towards a more integrated video and live stream solution for the city to be built into the meeting portal. And we're working through implementation of that right now. But in the meantime, a public comment function has been added to the meeting portal. can you see the meeting portal right now, or is it still on the agenda?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah, we can
all
see
right.
it.
Sometimes I'm confused about what I'm sharing. So now, when people go to the meeting portal, which is right off of our website where they can look at the agenda, everything, there's now a submit public comment option. And you just go click here to create a public comment, select the meeting and meeting type. You can even choose a file, so it could be a picture or a video. And then this will be actually attached to the agenda of the meeting that you're looking to comment, the public's looking to comment on. So it's a little bit more streamlined and all in one place.
That still has to be submitted ahead of time.
As long as it's submitted prior to the meeting and, you know, I get a chance to see it, it should be fine. The issue is if it's submitted during the meeting, I only have one screen and I can't be bouncing all over the place. So, but as long as it's submitted, you know, a couple minutes prior that I see it, this should work. And, you know, this is kind of a trial. If it's successful and people use it, you know, it's something that I'd recommend maybe that we'd continue past the COVID-19 phase of the world. But, you know, if it's something that isn't used over the next year, you know, we could eliminate it because obviously each component costs money. So.
Sure.
But people could like record themselves if they didn't want to come to a meeting and upload the video file and it could get played.
Oh, boy.
We're just, you know, looking for options, and at least really glad that you made the decision to move forward with iCompass and meeting portal software last year, because I think it has helped make going into this virtual environment a bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay. For a meeting Thursday, we'll do the pledge, prayer, roll call, and then I'll go ahead and swear Adam in before we start the meeting.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Adam. Can't miss Adam. You got to be there.
Planned on it.
Okay.
You can wear shorts, I guess.
We can do shorts and polos. That's fine. Especially if it's like today.
I'll definitely show up then.
We all good?
One more thing I'd like to mention. I'm not sure whether we need a council vote on it. If you noticed on our website, there was a young man, Landon Ritchie. He's a little boy. He has autism plus some other pretty serious medical problems. And he went to all the police stations in the county and had us do a birthday card for him. Well, as I got speaking with Landon, he has such a love for police officers. And I wonder if maybe we could do a proclamation at the August council meeting, naming him as an honorary police officer of the Frostburg Police Department. I spoke to his mother about this, and she said, sure, it would be something he could handle, and she could have him at our meeting.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think it would do a world of good for him because he's got such enthusiasm. One of the local policemen purchased him one of those little electric police cars. And his mother was on Facebook last night and said he got up at 5 o'clock this morning and tried to drive it through his bedroom. But he's just such an enthusiastic young fellow. I think that would be good for us.
Yes, very good. Very good.
Okay.
You arranged to have him there, Kevin, okay?
Okay, great.
We'll do it. Okay.
He's a Frostburg resident?
No, actually, he lives in LaVale. His father's a correctional officer, and he just moved from Cumberland to LaVale. And like I said, but just a really nice kid.
Good.
And I can get with Liz and give or Nick because we have all his information towards the proclamation.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Nope.
All good in the hood?
Nope.
Yep. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
all. Have a good afternoon. Stay cool.
You too.